Time to paint Zombie Forest from the Resident Evil board game by Steamforged Games. Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. In today's video we'll be painting up Forest Fleah from the Resident Evil board game by Steamforged Games. Up to this point I have finished off all the other monsters and characters that you need for your campaign playthroughs of your Resident Evil games. So now I'm moving on to Forest Fleah, who is an additional game mode called One Deadly Zombie, I think, and he basically stalks you throughout the mansion, and if you shoot him you die automatically because he's got loads of grenades on him. So yeah, from a segue from that, I have still a lot of the other characters' alternate sculpts and costumes to paint up. If you would like to see any of them, please leave me a donation or support via my PayPal, and I will attempt to get them painted up as quickly as possible. This does include all the Resident Evil 2 and all the Resident Evil 3 models, because I have all them as well. So if you would like to see any characters from those games painted up, be it Leon Kennedy, Claire Redfield, or Carlos, or a different Jill, or even any of the monsters, so William Birkin or the T-00 Tyrant or Nemesis, just throw me a donation, put your request in, and I'll try and get it painted and uploaded as soon as I possibly can. So without further ado, let's get into painting Forest Fleah after he has met his demise. Okay, so the first step I usually do is the flesh. So for this I am using Rakarth Flesh. Here I'm using a paint palette from Army Painter, and what this does, it's a wet palette, sorry, it keeps your paints usable for longer, so it stops them from drying out so quick. I highly advise getting one of these because it comes in handy and it saves you a hell of a lot of paint. The steps that I did before this, which I should have mentioned in the bit earlier, was these were cleaned and scrubbed with warm soapy water to get any release agent off. That's an important step because if you paint over it and with use, you'll start to see the paint coming away. So always scrub your minis before you paint them. And then it was base coated in Brainmatter Beige by Army Painter. And that was a rattle can. As you can see, the lower half hasn't been hit, but it doesn't matter. It gives it a bit of shadow, which is quite good. So I'll finish getting all the skin painted on Forest here, and we'll be back. Okay, so next step for Forest is Kantor Blue, and this is going to be on his very ripped body armor. So just be careful not to go over the flesh here. So like that. Just take your time. You should have no issues. Use a fine brush here and reach all those awkward areas. This probably need 2 coats to get good coverage. So I'll get that finished and we'll be back. Right, next we want to go in with Black Legion, and this is going to be for his gloves and his trousers. So again here, just take your time, try not to go over too many other bits, especially around the leg here with this leg wound. Yeah, just take your time here. It also includes his belt around his waist here. So the back here, like that, and his gloves as well. Yeah, and here. I'll get them finished and we'll be back. The next step is Balor Borwn, and this is going to be for the straps holding all the grenades. So you can't see much of the straps, there's just a little bit here. Like that. A little bit of the back like that. A little bit over the shoulder like that. Probably need 2 coats, but I'll get that done and we're back. We got Mournfang Brown, and that's going to be for his hair. Just take your time with this bit, so we don't really want to go on the face if we can avoid it. If not, you just have to go in and correct. Just take your time. Use a fairly fine brush like I'm using here. You should have no troubles. Okay, it's finished, and we'll be back. Next we're going to paint his grenades, and we're going to go for green grenades here. So for this we're going to use Orruk Flesh. And just paint in those grenades. This will probably need 2 coats to get nice coverage. So again, just take your time. Try not to spill over onto any of the other colours. And yeah, I'll get that done and we'll be back. Next up is a nice easy step, and it's Leadbelcher. That's for the bits on the back of the gloves. And the watch face as well. So watch face. That's it. And these bits on the back of the gloves. Right there. And there. Like that. Nice and easy. That's all the base coat's done. So now I'd say just take a bit of time. Go over everything again with the same base coats just to get them nice and good before we start washing the mini. Okay, so now that's all tidied up a bit. The next steps are the shading. So for these we're only going to use 2 paints for shading. That's going to be Nuln Oil and Reikland Fleshshade. We'll start off with Reikland Fleshshade. And this is going to be over all the fleshy areas and his hair. So don't use too much, you don't want it to pool. So if there's too much in one area, just use your brush to pull it away. And we're going to fill it all in like that. And the arms, and don't forget this little wound on his leg as well. We'll do that and then I'll get this finished and we'll be back. And we're going to go next with Nuln Oil. And this is going to be on the rest of the model. You don't really need to do the black trousers here, just on the back of the hands for the watch and the metal bit on the back, like so, and then on his jacket and on the grenades, like so. Just fill that in. I'll get this done and we'll be back. Okay, so that's how Zombie Forest is looking after being shaded. So next up we're going to go back in with a Rakarth Flesh, and this is to just bring out some of those highlights on the skin. A lot of it will be covered with blood and gore and such, but this is just to catch the sharpest edges, like the tips of the fingers, tops of muscles. You can see there's a lot of damage on him, like where crows have pecked him to pieces. But yeah, I'd also like to say that I've actually spent some of the donations that I've got, and I do have a new painting lamp which I'm currently using, and it is awesome. So thanks again to all those that have donated to the channel, and hopefully, yeah, I don't know if it shows up much on camera, but it helps me a hell of a lot. So thanks again for the donations on that. And I'll get this finished and we'll be back. Next step, we're going to go in with his jacket. For this we're going to need Calador Sky. And this is just going to pick up those sharpest parts of this. So mostly around the shoulders, or what's left of the jacket on the shoulders, and any tops of creases like here and here. This puffy bit around the neck, and the underarm here. So you want any bits that are facing towards the light, and sharpest edges and stuff. And I'll finish getting this done and we'll be back. Next we're going to go in with Mournfang Brown, and this is just to bring back some of that original colour on his hair. So you don't need a lot here. Just try to keep it on like the very top parts of the hair, not into the recesses. Just take your time here. You shouldn't have too much problems, like so. Next up we're going to do his grenades. So for this we want Orruk Flesh. And again, this is just a very slight highlight. I'm not too bothered about going too mad with these highlights on these zombie characters, just because they're more background characters. I suppose it's maybe a little bit different with Zombie Forest, as he's his own game mode, because he does pursue you through the mansion in the first part of the game. So if you want to take a little bit more time on the highlights, you definitely can with this guy. But as I said, I don't go too mad with like the regular zombies, because there is just so many of them. Like so. I'll get this finished and we're back. Next we're going to go in with Nurgling Green, I should say. And this is just going to be the sharpest highlights on the grenades. So just probably the top, maybe a line down the middle like that. Like that. Very subtle here. Again, don't have to do this step, you can just skip it if you want. But I'm only doing it just because he is a slightly more frequent occurrence. If you're playing his mode, he will be on the board quite a bit. I've never played the so I'm currently playing through the game, but we haven't played One Dangerous Zombie mode yet. So if you have, let me know in the comments if it's fun or if it's difficult. But there you go, this is grenades done. Next is Mechanicus Standard Grey, and this is going to be used to begin his highlights on his boots and his belt and his holster. So I do them different to the trousers, because the trousers I highlight with blues, whereas these ones I think grey is better for like more shiny, more glossy sort of finishes, especially on the boots, because they're meant to shine a bit, I suppose. But I just use different paints because it comes with different finishes. And don't forget his belt. So a little line there. Like that. And then his gloves. So okay. Next step is Ulthuan Grey, and I'm going to mix that in with the previous step. So if you do this straight away, it gets a lighter colour there, as you can see on my wet palette. And this is just for the highlights for the boots. So even less here, around the curved bit of the boots, and on the outside, like so. And on the sharpest points of these, the holster, and then the belt around his waist, like that. And then again, a little bit on his gloves, like so. You can do the underside as well if you wish, but it gets less light, so it's just not as important. Okay, we're going to go in with Dark Reaper, and this is going to be the highlighting of the trousers. So start off a bit on our wet palette, and just aim this more sort of towards the creases. The reason I do, yeah, like I said before, the reason I do this is just a different finish to the blacks. You can tell they're still meant to be black, but it's just that very slight change. I feel otherwise it just gets bogged down in too much grey if you don't especially on ones, or especially on models with more black on them. So again, aiming more for the creases, tops of the creases, like so, and this pocket on the side, the sharpest edges, like that. And so, once again, Ulthuan Grey, and just mix this in on your wet palette with the dark Reaper to sort of that sort of colour, and this just uses as the highlight. So again, even more sparingly this time. Again, aim for the top of the creases, like so. Don't have to go too mad, but it just gives a bit of a variation, which is what I'm going for here, like so. I'll get this finished and we'll be back. Once we've got the Ulthuan Grey out, I'll just use it to dot in the eyeballs. Well, actually, no, I won't, because I believe his eyeballs were pecked out by the crows, so maybe I won't be doing that. Step, I'll be taking Carrowburg Crimson, and this is going to be for the parts of his exposed flesh where I don't want to put too much blood for the blood god later. So it's like dry blood here, maybe some of these wounds on his arm, just to give it that reddish tint. This bite on his leg, around his mouth, like anywhere the skin's been broken. I'll do is around his eyes as well, because they're all pecked out, like so. And then probably a bit more on his arms, like old wounds where the bite marks are and the peck marks are, just to get some bit of a depth to those injuries, like so. And last but not least, my favourite part of the painting process is the blood. So as I usually do, I get one of these bristle protectors for brushes, and stick a bit of sponge in it because it helps with the dabbing. And we're going to go for blood for the blood god. Get a bit on our sponge, and we want to get rid of some of that on a bit of tissue because we don't want too much, and then just dab away some of the wounds. Again, you don't want too much because otherwise it would be too, well, it'd be too much. But a bit around his legs, a bit around his mouth, maybe too much around his mouth, see if I can dab some of that off, like that. So then you can use the other side, the clean side, to get some off if it goes too crazy. Bit on his, a bit on the grenades, bit around his ribs, his rib wound. Then we want some on his fingertips, like he's been just chowing down on enemies. And there you go. There you have it. Zombie Forest. Quite happy with how it turned out, actually. And there you have it. Zombie Forest is finished. If you're curious about what paint I use for the bases, since it's still drying, I use Khorne Red for all the monster minis. I'm trying to base some of the bosses properly, like in some of my videos. But yeah, that's Zombie Forest is finished. So if you enjoy the video, please leave me a like and subscribe. I also have a link in the description to my PayPal, and if you would like to support the channel, please do. The support so far has brought me a new painting lamp, which I am really enjoying. I think it's working perfectly well, and it is helping me paint. All that extra light is definitely a boon when it comes to painting. In regards to the Resident Evil models, I probably finished for now, unless anyone would like me to paint any Resident Evil 2 or 3 minis, in which case a donation is a video away. But I plan to move on to some other projects in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for those. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Happy painting, and we'll see you in the next video.